What's up, guys? It's the Bluebloods here coming at y'all with another episode in our SEC in 30 days. We only got like three left, and this is one of them. And we're finally at the LSU Tigers. I knew y'all knew we weren't going to leave LSU on the table. Brandon would have quit the podcast before we didn't do an LSU episode, but we're joined by LSU Football Insider, host of the Are You Serious podcast, the AYS podcast on YouTube, all podcast streaming platforms. Blake Ruffino is joining us today, and I just want to say, man, I can't believe you're on the show, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you, Zach, for having me on, and looking forward to have a good time.
Absolutely. So before we get into the good stuff, we got to start out with some of the bad. The 2020 season was probably, I think LSU had the most up and down year of any team in the country. You get the lows of the Mississippi State game, you get the lows of the Auburn game, but you also get the highs of the Florida game, the Ole Miss game at the end of the season. For you, I usually ask if the season met expectations, but I know the answer to that. So for you, what went wrong for the 2020 LSU Tigers?
Well, look, Zach, just for me personally, I feel as if that, and I hate the what if game, right? Like, it is actually a sports pet peeve of mine. Everybody says, well, what if this would have happened? What if that would have happened? Well, we don't live in fantasy land. We don't live in Candy land. This isn't Candy Crush. Okay, this is reality. And so I look at 2020 season, but I do think to myself, what would have happened if it wasn't a COVID season? But it was. And look, Ed's got a lot of questions around him right now, and a lot of people, I know that you're an Auburn fan, have put two and two and aligned him with Gene Chizik. Well, here's the thing about that. He's still a national championship winning head coach. So is Gene Chizik. So they were able to go out and get guys and win a national championship in respected years. Now, I do think that LSU had a lot of off the field stuff. A lot of stuff with, and I'm not going to go into great detail here, but politics and stuff outside of I don't want to say of their control, because some of it was of their control, but look, you get above that mountaintop, and then all of a sudden you don't know how to stay there. As kids, we played King of the Mountain, and when you're the king of the mountain and you got the guy that's normally up there and he ain't up there no more, he gets a little pissed off. So then he comes back up there and wants to fight, and we saw what happened. Now, I think that LSU, in my personal opinion, has something really interesting rolling with them. They got a lot of talent, and we've seen that in the recruits and the recruiting classes. We saw that at the end of the season, knocking off Florida and being able to go blow for blow in a really bad defense against Ole Miss. So I think that LSU, with the talent, also brings experience. Zach, LSU has 33 guys that have had an SEC start, whether it be with LSU or at another school and they transferred in. Mike Jones from Clemson transfers in. And what's crazy about that is Mel Kiper and Tom McShay and all these draft gurus, Mike Detillier as well, he says that they have him as a late first-round pick, early second-round pick, which is crazy, though, because you have a guy that leaves Clemson, doesn't get playing time, and then he's still a second-round pick or projected to be. But he comes in, and we'll see what all this talent and experience gives them. They return both lines of scrimmage, and I really think that that's the key to LSU's success going into the season. So where I'm not going to take a whole lot out of 2020, regardless of what the team is, because I want to see what it's like to get back to reality. And LSU has the chance to get back to the 9-10 wins, and I think it'll be interesting to see what they do from there going on.
Absolutely. I mean, this was probably one of the bigger surprises for me. I mean, I didn't have them winning the SEC, but I didn't have them going 5-5 and losing to Mississippi State. I lost a big bet week one on you guys to say I bet the house on you guys to my friend who picked Mississippi State. Still upset about that. But one of the keys last year was the defense. Everyone keeps calling it the worst defense in LSU history. Bo Pelini took all the fall. I mean, every LSU fan I've talked to said it was all Bo Pelini. That's it. For you, watching this team, covering this team, was it more Bo Pelini's scheme compared to what Dave Aranda left over, or was it execution? What was it about this defense that just didn't click?
Yeah, so I'm in the minority. I mean, you can't blame everything on Bo Pelini. Okay, when guys are getting confused in man-to-man coverage and you're in a zero coverage, I mean, with all due respect, how do you get confused in that? I mean, look, I played football collegiately for a long time, and I could tell you you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 6 could be, depending on what you want to do with 6, meaning 6 can be a key for a tackle, whatever, and read the key on the tackle. So if you got 5 reads that you have to go on, I mean, how are you getting confused on that? This guy's got this guy, so I don't know how they were getting confused, and I think communication was a big thing there. Stats can be deceiving, although some LSU fans disagree on this, and stats can be deceiving sometimes. At the end of the season, this team, in the last 3 games, had 9 interceptions, 5 in one game against Ole Miss. So I start to ask myself the question, well, they got a crap ton of turnovers, but then even in the Mississippi State game, they got 2 interceptions, LSU can't score. When you can't capitalize on turning the ball over and get 6, you're going to get your ass beat. That's just the bottom line, and not because I know Stone Cold would say because I said so, but not because I said so. Look at the games. If you don't score 6 when you get a turnover, you get beat. So although Bo Pelini was hard-headed in his decision-making, I don't think new defensive coordinator Durante Jones will be. We even saw in the spring game a very talented quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier comes in. They show man at the snap, boom, they bust out into zone. He throws in an interception. I think the Durante Jones hire is very underrated. It's going to be interesting to watch. So I'm not going to completely blame Bo Pelini because you know what? He's not getting beaten man-to-man coverage. But I do think that he cashed it in maybe halfway through the season, especially after Auburn. But here's an interesting thing. Those kids kept playing, didn't they? And they kept beating teams like Florida. You got a guy, and I'm the CEO and president of this kid's fan club, and that's Jay Ward, who moves from corner to safety. Look, he's running stride for stride with guys like Kadarius Toney, who quite possibly was the fastest kid and the fastest guy in the draft last season. And all he did when he was lined up in Kadarius Toney is Trask went 0 for 6 and couldn't get a pass off on him. Oh, by the way, he's got an interception. So LSU on the back end, I think they'll get a lot better because they bring – LSU did something stupid, in my opinion. They separated the safeties and corners into 2 different rooms. I never understood why Dave Aranda did that, but it did work for Aranda. It worked for a while with Aranda, and you had guys like Grant Delpit and others, but as it continued to go on, miscommunication continued to happen, and I really do think that it brought itself to a head in 2020. And look, I think that a lot of people say, well, the offseason, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. Well, ask LSU if the offseason means a lot in communication. Zoom meetings mean nothing. Being able to put on the helmet and the pads, going out there and practice, that's why practice, the old saying, as your grandmammy would tell you, practice makes perfect. And LSU show when you don't have that practice, it can really come back and bite you on the backside.
Absolutely. I mean, anyone who's discrediting an entire summer of doing nothing with your teammates, an entire fall, is really out of touch with college football in general. But to the good stuff, though, there is a quarterback battle raging in Baton Rouge. A lot of people, if I would have told you last August that there's a chance Myles Brennan wouldn't be the starter, everyone probably would have looked at you a little crazy. But Myles Brennan, Max Johnson battling it out. TJ Finley just left for Auburn as he was kind of the third man out. I've been super vocal on this podcast that is as crazy as it may sound. I think Max Johnson is a better quarterback. I think he's closer to Joe Burrow than Myles Brennan. My co-host, who's an LSU fan, disagrees with me, but there's a lot of support for either one. For you, though, just in your opinion, what do each of these guys bring to the table that's unique, and who is your favorite for QB1 this upcoming season?
Look, so I've been very vocal, too, on this. There's 3 letters. It's called RPO. And Max Johnson, and I explained this, so I'm going to give the plug at the end, and we did a deep dive and explanation of the RPO game, and especially as a former O-lineman, what it looks like for them, and you can go check that out. But because I'm not going to bore your listeners and the people watching on that, but look, RPO game is something that Jake Peetz is going to run. Okay, now Joe Brady and LSU did it a little bit in 2019. They were successful with it, but look, Jake Peetz was on that staff with Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian. We saw a couple of Alabama plays that they ran out there in the spring game. The old Steve Sarkisian play where a wide receiver like Jalen Waddle comes back into the backfield and sprints out. They fake it, and then they have the slot wide receiver going across the middle like they have Devontae Smith. Shout out Devontae Smith, good kid. My mom taught him in junior high. But he goes screaming across the middle, and you hit it wide open. LSU scored on that. Look, nobody respected. Mississippi State showed you nobody respects Myles Brennan running the football. Just a very quick analogy. I mean, look, the defensive end has no idea. The defensive end that you read on the RPO has absolutely no idea what the outside receivers are doing. He has no idea if they're running a slant, if they're blocking, what they're doing. Neither does really the linebacker at times when you have a mobile quarterback. So if the DN's going to crash down, what do you do at that point? So I think that he gives you a bigger ability, and you don't really know what to do. Florida did not have an answer for that, and that's why they, in my opinion, I don't care that Marco Wilson threw the shoe. I don't care about that because one play at the end of the day in a 60-minute game, yeah, it might win or lose you a game, but what happened to the other 59 minutes? Okay, Max Johnson showed himself and was able to push and be able to win, and guys love him. Look, he's winning that locker room, and I think that he's actually, I don't think. I know that he's separating himself from being the guy that the team is rallying around in that locker room. People have called me a Myles Brennan hater and a Myles Brennan and I don't, Zach. I really don't hate Myles Brennan. He does have a big arm. He does have he is a guy that's really and it's crazy because I don't want to say experienced because he doesn't have more starts. Well, maybe one more start more than Max Johnson, which is crazy in and of itself. Where I think Max separates himself is that I think the durability factor plays a big deal. In 4 years that we've seen Myles Brennan play, he's never not been – that's too negative. So he's always been injured. How about that? He's always been injured. In 2018 against Alabama, it was the big game because LSU finally has a quarterback. Well, LSU doesn't run Joe Burrow at all because they only had 2 scholarship quarterbacks, and Myles Brennan's hurt. Nobody knew about it until the end of the season. Oh, by the way, so was Joe Burrow with a dislocated shoulder, but he had the nads to run his happy ass out there, and that's when the team really rallied. That's why LSU won a national title in 2019. When they saw Joe Burrow run his butt out there with a dislocated shoulder and go out there and do everything he could, and then the Texas A&M game when he's got to get an IV, and then UCF when he gets his chin busted on the bad blindside call that they didn't even, which was ridiculous. Okay, that's where he won the team. Myles Brennan does not show that, at least not yet. Now, do I think that he has the ability to really throw the ball and do some things? Yes, but I'm saving this for I was saving this for my show Monday, but I'm going to give it to you here. LSU and Ed Orgeron hired an offensive scheme to fit Max Johnson, not Myles Brennan. So that should tell you where they think that they're going. I'm going to give a couple positives now because it looks like I'm beating up on Myles. Strong arm, intelligent kid. If he wanted to, he could be a really good quarterback. I don't know if he wants to. He's got the tools. He's got the talent. But can he put everything together? Can he stay healthy? He's put on some pounds. Look, man, he's a Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end. So, we'll see. We'll see if he's able to push Max. And, look, there's some people who believe that if he's not the starter, that he stays. I don't believe that. But, it's going to be very interesting because I don't think that he beats out Max at the end of the day.
Yeah. I just – the best way I'll put it on our show is – I just feel like Max has that it factor. You can't teach it. You can't really put your finger on it. But watching that Florida game, I'm just here to say if Myles Brennan starts that Florida game, I don't think LSU wins that game. I don't think they have a chance to win that game.
Yeah, and they probably don't. And look, you can even – and like I said, I don't like the what-if game, but a lot of people talk about the Texas A&M game where LSU holds A&M the way that they did and couldn't score anything on offense until Max Johnson gets in there. What happens? I mean, because Texas A&M, that was the game that I think that, which is crazy, is Kellen Mond doesn't go above 50% in completion percentage. People were bashing Bo Pelini, and I'm saying, guys, you didn't score a point, and you held an SEC team, the second team in the SEC West, to 20 points. I mean, this team was progressing. I just think that people just didn't give maybe this a little bit enough time, but I'm glad that we got Durante Jones. Look, I don't want to play the what if game. I think the what if game is going to play itself out now, right? Like you're going to play the game now and see what happens. And you got everybody returning, which is really scary for people that I talked to. Look, an SEC coach told me a couple days ago that he's more scared of LSU now than he ever was going after 2019 because he sees everybody that's returning, which is a really interesting comment. And I like to see that. It's going to be a very interesting season.
Absolutely. And not even just everyone returning. This is where I want to shift to next. This recruiting class that LSU is bringing in is star-studded, man. The top 3 class in the country, 5 stars, Mason Smith, Sage Ryan, both on the defensive side of the ball coming in. Out of the state of Louisiana, Coach O finally was building that wall around the state of Louisiana. What were the biggest positional needs for the Tigers this class, and who are some guys that you have your eyes on to make an instant impact?
Yeah, linebacker number 1, and I'm going to kind of cop out on you here, Zach, and talk about 2 guys in the transfer portal. Because, look, for me, when you talk about a day 1 starter, especially as a freshman, you better be damn special. You better be number 1 pick in the draft special. Trevor Lawrence, and although I think I've said that I think he could bust, but that's neither here nor there. But you better be that kind of special, right? Like you better have that prestige about you. So I don't know if Mason Smith starts game 1. There's a great chance he doesn't. Sage Ryan is a little different because of the need probably at safety, but I don't even know if he starts. I'm going to go Mike Jones again. Mike Jones. And look, Bug Strong, the number 1 JUCO linebacker in this past recruiting class, reminds me of a smaller Devin White. This kid can run. This kid can hit. This kid can cover. That kid's scary now. Now, I've seen we've seen some film on him in the spring. He didn't play the spring game, and I think they did that on purpose. Linebacker was, to me, the biggest need that this defense needed. Maybe outside of safety, but they go and get 2 guys that can really play. Mike Jones had the interception in the playoff game against Ohio State when they got beat. So those are 2 guys that I think that you can plug in this recruiting class right now and play. From a freshman standpoint, yeah, I think Mason Smith can play and rotate. I don't know if he dominates so much to become a starter. Look, it's really tough on the line of scrimmage to be a day 1 starter. Can he do it? Sure. Does he have the ability? Absolutely. But I think that that's going to be very tough for that. I'm going to give you one that I think that no one's really talking about, and a guy that I think is going to get a lot of playing time is Jack Besh out of St. Thomas More. A guy that's going to be an H-back. He's already running with the ones. You can see pictures with him on Instagram and Twitter. He's running plays with Max Johnson. He's with Ty Davis Price. He's with the offensive line. He was very under-recruited. I think it's because he didn't get a lot of offers until late. He committed to Vandy. LSU's like, you know what? I mean, this kid's just killing everybody. They offer within 12 hours the kid who wanted to always go to LSU. He comes in. A lot of buzz around Jack Besh, but he hasn't put on those pads yet. He hasn't been in an LSU practice. Summer workouts are one thing, but when them pads are on, it's something completely else. So I think Jack Besh is somebody that if you know, because he's already running with the ones, I think that you can make an interesting bet that he might get some playing time right off the bat.
Right. So, I mean, we have these freshmen, we have these transfer portal guys. LSU had a lot of people leave for the draft as well, and just a lot of departures over the last 2 years. I mean, from the 19 team and 20 team, who are some people that have been on the roster that people might not have heard of yet? Like, who do you have your eyes on as potential returning breakout players for LSU this year?
You know, that's interesting. They have had a lot of – I think they've had 24 players drafted, I think it is, in the last 2 seasons, which ties a record, believe it or not, with that team out in Alabama, the Crimson team, the team that lost to ULM in 2007. Was it 2007? Yeah, I think it was 2007. Yeah. So, that's interesting because you do have a lot of guys returning, even though you got 33 guys have starts. And so that's to me the interesting thing about this. That's a tough one because I look around LSU and I could see a couple guys, but the problem is that I think that they've had a lot of guys that shown out. I'm going to say Jay Ward again, the CEO and president of that kid's. Look, he played a lot, and LSU fans know him, but I don't know if he's known on a national level yet. That I think that he can make it. Another DB is Dwight McGlothern. The way that kid played this spring was absolutely locked down. Look, he was locking down Kayshon Boutte, and everybody was kind of like, man, what are we watching? So he would be interesting. I'm really looking forward to one of these wide receivers, right? You got Kayshon Boutte. You have some other guys that have been there, Trey Palmer, Coy Moore. Who's going to be that second and third guy that stands out? Now, we all went into the 2019 season. There's a lot of talented guys. Jamar Chase struggled as a freshman, like really struggled, especially with drops. I think he led the team, and I'm almost confident with not the stats in front of me that he led the SEC or was close to leading the SEC in drops, which is crazy. And then he turns it around. Look what he did in 2019. They got a lot of talent there. Can they get their playmakers the ball in space? Trey Palmer is a guy that I've known really well. My cousin coached him at Kentwood, baseball, three-sport guy. If he can find a way to be able to catch the football and hold on to it, we saw what he could do in the kick return game. He took one to the house. We saw what he did when you got him the ball in the flat, and Alabama's trying to run him down, and they can't. Now, that's scary, right? Like, that's scary when you're separating yourself from speed-wise against a team like Alabama. I really am hoping for that kid that he starts to separate himself because he's got the speed, he's got the talent. Can he catch the football? I made a joke with a couple of his family members. I forget the guy's name, but he's off the replacements. He can't. They have to put the sticky stuff on his hands. God, his name's slipping my name, or his name's slipping my head. But he reminds me of that. Like, hey Trey, put some sticky stuff on your hands, and you can catch the ball, and you be fine. But regardless, I think Trey Palmer is a guy that I hope that could be a sleeper that can emerge.
Right. I mean, I know there's a lot of people talking about Eli Ricks being a breakout, but for me, I don't think that's a breakout because I feel like he broke out last. I mean, that kid was a baller, but I kind of want to get to this question. This was a topic. I think we got a comment on one of our videos about this.
Clifford Franklin. I'm sorry. Clifford Franklin. That was going to bug me. Yeah, Clifford Franklin. All right. My bad. Continue.
Yeah. No, you're good. So, I mean, we got a comment that said last year, a lot of people thought Derek Stingley got exposed at times. I went back and watched your post game. You said Seth Williams exposed to him. There's some talk that Devontae Smith did at times. You have Eli Ricks
a lot. Yeah.
So I mean, you have Stingley, you have Eli Ricks. There's a lot of talk that Stingley was going to be the first pick in the draft. All that. What do you think? What are your expectations for Stingley and Ricks? And there was rumors that he was hurt last year, that he wasn't into it. What went wrong with Stingley last year? And do you think him and Ricks are going to combine to be the best DB combo in the country next year?
Yeah, well, first off, I think that they are the best DB combo in the country. I think that Stingley did have that sophomore slump, right? I think that the talent's there. Look, he was battling some injuries last year. Remember, he was out for the Mississippi State game, had to go to the hospital, wound up being okay. I mean, it was a really scary moment there, but thank God he was fine. He comes back, and something that's interesting, didn't play the Vandy game a lot, comes back, and then he goes against Missouri and starts locking guys down. And then the stupid referee with the first down marker, instead of running back and holding it, he drops it, and then Derek Stingley rolls his ankle on the damn first down marker. Like, you Rudy Poo, like, get out of the way. That's been one of my biggest complaints. Hey, guy that's 67 who can't run, don't put him that close to the sideline. Don't do it. Don't bring my fat ass out there either, and let me hold it with these gargantuan athletes with that kind of speed that's going to be running towards me, and I can't get out of the way. Sorry, that's just a pet peeve too. I don't know why my pet peeves are coming up today, Zach, but I think that he was just a little nicked up. He played better at the end of the season. He was out. And then it got guys like Jay Ward to go out there and have pick sixes, and Dwight McGlothern, who did really well. I think that he's going to be fine. He's got the talent. Look, he didn't get worse. Okay, I'm going to tell you, he didn't get worse. I was really interested to see that, he didn't step up to the Devontae Smith, but look, you can tell when he's limping. He's limping in pregame. But he tried to tough it out, and he probably shouldn't have played that game. But he wanted to go out there and look. Devontae Smith won both battles, And so I know that those guys are going to probably see each other in the future in the NFL, and I'm going to be really interested to see what he does in that matchup. Eli Ricks, he was out this past spring with a couple of injuries, a shoulder being the main one. He's going to be fine. He's going to be back. And look, what's funny is that who are you going to throw it at? Are you seeing that? This is the interesting part. Are you going to throw it at Elias Ricks, who had the interceptions and the pick sixes that he had last year? Are you going to dare Derek Stingley? So a healthy Derek Stingley, a locked in Derek Stingley. We'll see, but I really think that LSU will be fine there. I'm not worried about Stingley at all.
Yeah, I mean, there's always sophomore slumps, man. I mean, you can't expect a kid to play perfect every single game. Even Trevor Lawrence at the beginning of, I think it was last year, 2019, people were like, did he fall off because he had more picks and interceptions, and it was a whole thing, and he ended up being fine. But all this has led to this. I mean, looking at the 2021 schedule, it's life in the SEC is tough. Let's just be honest. I mean, road games, UCLA for non-conference is a tough one. Ole Miss, Alabama. You also have Texas A&M, Florida, Auburn. It's just a brutal schedule, to be honest. For you right now, as we're recording in June, what is the ceiling and or floor for the 2021 LSU Tigers?
I think the ceiling's winning the SEC West. I mean, I fully believe that they got the talent and experience to do it. The bottom floor, the absolute bottom floor, is going to be probably 8-4. I don't see this team doing that, though. I think that they can get to 9 to 10 wins. I can see them somewhere in the middle, because I think that they go out, they beat UCLA, they beat McNeese, they beat Central Michigan. That Mississippi State game is going to be a revenge game. Those kids are pissed off. So when you get to the first 5-6 games of the season, I think that, look, Auburn's going to be a revenge game. Look, this is a revenge tour that LSU is going to be on. The games that really start, I look at, I don't want to call them trap games, but you look at Kentucky. LSU never plays good in Kentucky, never played good at Kroger. We remember 2007 when the national championship team went up there and lost in 3 overtimes. I think that could be a really tough game, because these kids don't remember that. Florida, I think takes a step back, so that game doesn't really scare me as much. Look, as much as everybody talks about, it's every year, Zach, it's this. Oh, Blake, you better watch out for Florida. You better watch out for that Florida game. LSU has won 9 of the last 11, or was it 8 of the last 11? It's either 8 or 9 of the last 11 matchups that they've had with Florida. Look, they dominated them. So I'm kind of tired of hearing you better watch out for Florida. No, LSU has dominated that series over the last decade. So I do think that they take a step back. So when I look at it, for me personally, I see the first, let's just say 7 games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, first 7 games that LSU could be undefeated. Then LSU goes to Ole Miss. And I've said this religiously, and I'm going to continue to say it. They scared the bejesus out of me. I don't think defensively they can stop anything. I was going to say something bad, but I'm not going to even say it. But they couldn't stop a runny nose with all the Kleenex that COVID provided, okay? They just can't. They can't do it. But they can score. And they're going to go toe-to-toe with everybody. Matt Corral comes back. Lane Kiffin in his second year. They do get better on the offensive line. They do. Elijah Moore's out, but they always seem to produce these wide receivers. So I think that that game just scares me more than anything. I actually got Ole Miss finishing 3rd in the West, which is going to piss a lot of A&M fans off. But DM me, bro. Come on. I think A&M, as us Italians would say, I think that they're fugazis. We'll see. But I think that they could get to 9 to 10 wins. You get into the Alabama game, then you get to Arkansas, then you get to A&M. So the back half of the schedule is a little tough, but is it really? Because, look, the first 7 games, I think that LSU can run the table. Then you have Ole Miss, then you have Alabama, then you have Arkansas, then you have ULM, then you have ULM, then Texas A&M. So I think that it is a favorable schedule this year for LSU, because if you remember, the LSU Florida series flipped on the home and away, where they had to do the back-to-backs. Could you have imagined going to Kentucky, then to Gainesville? That would have been really tough. But they don't have to do that, which is really good for LSU in the schedule of the season.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I think I don't think you're off point on A&M. After that spring game, not very. I don't know about that quarterback situation. They talked a lot about Haynes King, and I don't know about him. I got a lot of question marks, but man, this question I know the answer to because I've been to LSU games multiple times. My sister goes to LSU. My co-host lives in Baton Rouge, so I've been down there for Auburn games. I hate it. It's hell on earth on game day if Auburn's playing there, but it's amazing when they're not. For those who haven't been yet, man, what makes Baton Rouge, Death Valley such a unique environment on game days?
The alcohol. I mean, let's just call it what it is. I think the tailgating, and look, not only do you have players that want to get back out there and show that last year was just it was what it was. Like it was something that's never happened before. I think the fans are going to show up and show out. Like I really believe for the UCLA game, for an example, there's going to be more LSU fans in the Rose Bowl against UCLA than there is any like California anywhere. I think that they're going to pack that stadium. LSU fans want to get back out and tailgate. They want to get back out and have a good time, drink and do stuff like that. They want to get back in that stadium. I'm not going to say they're going to sell out until, maybe I don't know what game they'd sell out because Alabama's not coming, to Baton Rouge.
I would say Auburn. Maybe Auburn.
Yeah, probably Auburn or Florida. One of those two. I think that they could sell out. That's a big home marquee games. But I think that it just makes it so much more interesting at a night game when everybody's been drinking. Look, it's a party down here, man. And so personally, I do the post-game show from right here in the studio. So I don't get to go to the stadium, and I have a son, and he's growing up, and I'm thinking, man, as much as we've all been through, as much as COVID has put us all through, I sit back and ask myself, is it time to, do I want to bring my son? Do I want to go? The last time I was in LSU Stadium was again, or I say the last time because that's not true, but one of the last times, and this wasn't even a marquee game because I was at Auburn when that slugfest of Derek Brown. Like, sit down, Derek Brown. Please don't play against LSU, and you won't ever again. But I sit back and I remember that Georgia Southern game, and I remember the atmosphere. I remember the temperature gauge from the press when you have to walk out, and I look at the temperature gauge, and it says 107. And I'm sitting there, and I look at Joe Burrow, and I see him slice up this Georgia Southern team, and I look at Joe Burrow, and he winks to the media crowd over, and he goes, "I told you." And because we're beginning of the season, he's telling everybody they're going to score 40, 50, 60 points. And he winks at the media and starts giggling. Like, I miss that kind of stuff. So that's the atmosphere. They want to be there. And, the earthquake game against Auburn are some things that make LSU great. But the coon asses, the Cajun people, they want to be back in that stadium. And they'll definitely have it soon.
Absolutely. Y'all get a bad rap. I've been to a lot of SEC stadiums. I think Georgia fans are easily way worse than LSU fans. I think Bama fans way worse than LSU fans. We had a blast when we went down there. I was there for the Leonard Fournette eating everybody alive game. That haunts my dreams watching the Auburn dude fly through the air over his back. And then I was there for the comeback in the 2018. So that was brutal as well. But man, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. This was a blast. Love talking football, man. Where can they find you, man? I love your show. I know it's part of the Bleav network. I'm pretty sure. So, man, where can they find everything like that?
Yeah, Zach, I thank you guys for having me on. Go to AYS Sports across the board on all social media platforms. We just got monetized and over the 1,000 on YouTube, so I was kind of excited on that. I'm not a technological guy. One day I just fired up a camera and started doing it, and they were like, well, you need to get the 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I'm like, I'm not doing that, Rudy Poo. And then people start talking to me about it, so I was pretty, excited about that. So Twitter, AYS Sports, Facebook, AYS Sports Network, and that's where they can find me. And again, Zach, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, man. We'll definitely have to get you back on the show during the season. I'll be down in Baton Rouge for the Auburn game this year, coming down there to go with my sister. My co-host will be there, man, so we'll have to hit you up when we get down in town. But, man, guys, go check out Are You Serious Sports. Go check out Blake. Follow him on Twitter. Y'all know where to find us. Y'all know where to find the YouTube channel. Subscribe now. Thumbs up on the video, everything. We'll be back with South Carolina next, so make sure to check that out as well. But for Blake, myself, and the Bluebloods guys, we are out.